So, reflection is where we're at, how we got stirred up, why we got stirred up, what that experience was like for us. And then reflective practice is when we're going to step back and we're going to think about that work with the child and the caregivers or the family, and we're going to try and make sense of that experience. And we're going to take into account not only where we are at, but where that child was at. And we're going to try and give some meaning to that situation. And we're going to try and make sense of what happened and why it happened. So, why we do this? A child acts negatively or avoidant towards adults. We see this all the time in the classroom. We act negatively towards that child. The child feels, oh yeah, that's right, adults, this is right, this is exactly how adults react to me. Then we stop investing positive energy into that child because it's really hard. Then the child brings negative expectations about this relationship. So it's this cycle that we get stuck into. As children learn, as they're experiencing toxic stress and all of this, they're learning whether caregivers respond and how they respond. If they're coming from a home of chaos, they maybe learn to be super negative or avoidant or anxious, and they bring that into the classroom, and then they kind of wait for us unintentionally to conform to their expectations. So we can view behavior from its context. So what I want to say here is it's not just this. Oh, they have trauma at home. They're acting this way, but it's more to it than that. It's deeper than that. There's more going on than that. I'm going to go through an example here. What happens though is the stronger the behavior it is, it's harder for us to reflect upon it, harder for us to go deeper. We become more stressed out, right? That secondary trauma comes into effect. I was in a classroom one time, and I watched this child come up behind another kiddo and whisper to them, "I will cut you." And I was like, what on earth? And I said, whoa, tell me what just happened. And this child proceeded to explain this. So in that moment, I could have said, I can't believe this child said that to another child. This is terrible. It comes from a chaotic home environment. I knew I had capacity, and I said, whoa, why don't you tell me a little bit about what happened? And she proceeded to explain this very horrific home life experience of what was going on and what she had just gone through. I actually had to take a step out of the classroom because I immediately began to cry. And once I stopped crying, I called OCS. But it would have been very easy to say, don't say that to another child. Use kind words. But I knew there was something else going on there. And when we hear things like that, when a 3-year-old calls us a mother effing B, like it can be, like that's offensive to us. And we get stuck right there instead of going on. So why does aggressive behavior seem to come out of nowhere? Maybe they are like a volcano. They're really quiet until they're not. Well, they just don't have the coping skills yet, and we can't make sense of it, and so they don't conform to our expectations. So again, we get stuck in that negative cycle, and we're unaware of what's going on at home. And so it's kind of hard to understand, so we just kind of leave it at that when there's more to it than that. So it's not just how do we help them not be aggressive or swear or, insert your most annoying behavior. It's what are the sources? How did the child learn to act that way? Why are they acting that way? What's going on? So, okay, lose my mouse here. And wouldn't it be so much easier and the reason I'm acting aggressively is that I saw my father hit my mother, and I'm remembering that all the time, and I worry that it could happen all over again, and I get aroused easily when I'm threatened or threatened either by what's happening around me or by my memories. We can help sort of construct some of this narrative as we use reflective practice. And we try to make sense of this behavior of what the child has experienced. So if the kiddo is hitting, it's not just stop the hitting or they've got chaos going on at home. It's because this child is feeling threatened, and this child is living in fear, and they are living in that survival brain or maybe that emotional brain, and they don't know what's going on, and so they act out. And when we can come to that place, when we see what's going on and why that's going on, that is what can give us slightly greater capacity, greater empathy to approach it from a different perspective than just don't hit or make a different choice or, go calm down. We really got to meet that child where they're at. And we can do that when we start to reflect through that practice. But sometimes we protect ourselves because this work is super painful and we don't want to go there because maybe we've got our own trauma history and we're getting triggered, or maybe we just haven't ever experienced some of these things before. Up until I moved to Alaska, I never had a 3-year-old call me a mother F and B. So I was like, what do I do now? I'm like totally stuck. Or we just think, oh, maybe they have ADHD, like they have no control at home. Really, there's other things going on. Or we avoid, because when I get home, I just want to be with my family and I don't want to think about what's happened during the day. So what do we, as teachers working with children, we can provide the child with a new working model of relationships. So instead of getting stuck in that negative cycle, we're going to do a different cycle. But behavior gets worse before it gets better because the child is expecting you to act in a certain way, and when we don't do that, they feel really unsafe because they're used to certain patterns. It will take time, it takes reflective practice, it takes time outs, it takes self-care to, to, to carve these new pathways in the brain of a child who's acting in these negative ways. And so when we act differently than what they're expecting, their brain doesn't know what to do, and it takes time for them to realize, oh, this is safe. I can do this. I can do this. And we continue to be with that child. Again, I think relationships are the antidote and the buffer to stress. This is true not just for us, it's also true for the children that we work with. So as we are consistently showing up in the classroom and we do that same exact routine every day and we have our consistent responses every single day, and we ourselves have the empathy and we can stay grounded and we can stay calm, we're showing and we're modeling to that child what a secure attachment looks like. We're modeling to them that we don't have to react in ways that you've witnessed before. I said to a kiddo one time, we were having a calm down moment, and I said something, that your job as teachers is to teach. And in doing that, and being trauma informed and using social emotional curriculum and using conscious discipline, all of that SEL stuff, it's really the repair work that you're doing. So it's both preventative and it's interventive, and it is at times borderline therapeutic work that you are doing, and some very basic ways in the classrooms that you work in. And I know that's maybe not the role that you signed up for or that you didn't realize that you were doing, but that is, and that's why we implement that's why we talk about Wellness Wednesday and we talk about reflection and we do this mindfulness. That's why we do this for ourselves, because really we're working on repair in those classrooms. That's why we do circle every single day. We do the same thing every day at the same time, because that's where that repair is. We're teaching children we show up consistently and we're going to be here for you. And I will put this in the Wellness Wednesday folder. These are some questions just to encourage reflection that you can use with one another, you can use with co-teachers. And this is sort of some of that process. When did you first notice this behavior? When does this most likely to happen? What has changed? Has frequency changed? Intensity, the duration of it changed? Circumstances changed? What do you know about what's going on at home? What do you know about their culture and background? What about previous school experiences? What's it like for you to work with this family? What's it like for you to work with this child? What's being triggered in you? What's getting stirred up in you? Where's their developmental level at? What regulation do they have? What regulation do they don't have? What's your theory of what's going on here? What do you think they would make of the behavior? Puzzling to you? And I think also that, oh, this is why, and one of my learning collaboratives that I'm a part of, um, we do case presentations of cases that we're working with, and our first question is always, what's it like for you to work with this family? And that's where we just get it out right away. It's been really joyful. I really have a great relationship with this family, or I'm super overwhelmed, or I'm afraid, or I just don't like this family. Um, Things like that. And then we really stop. We spend so much time on what that child's history is, because that's how we're making meaning. That's how we're bringing understanding to what's going on to that child's working model of relationships into attachments. So we gather all of this information because we're trying to create this narrative of where they're at.